Hello, Urbandale families. My name is Laura Justman, principal at Karen Acres Elementary. Welcome to our first segment of our video series called You Got This. We wanted to find a way to connect with you during this unique time of online learning, to not only thank you for the work you're doing with your children at home, but to also offer ideas to make the process as manageable as possible for you. You're going to hear from 3 administrators and 1 instructional coach, all who have something in common with you. They have school-age children. They'll be the first to admit that some days run smoother than others, but for the most part, they have gotten into a rhythm that works for their family's circumstances at home. Before we hear from them, let's take a look at the goals of the session. Our first goal is to explore learning options with or without technology. Second goal, explore ways to organize the learning space. Our third goal is to explore ways to organize the learning schedule. And finally, explore ways to help high school students prioritize. Here's our first presenter, Jeremy Braden, Urbandale Middle School principal.
Thank you. So the crew we're going to be talking about today here on our slide, you can see us there. We're going to be taking a look at 3's company and 4's a crowd. So we've got Lucille is our oldest. My wife, Carrie, is a kindergarten teacher, so that is certainly helpful in this circumstance. But Lucille is our oldest, and she is in kindergarten. And then we have Charlotte and Amelia, our twin 3-year-olds that we're navigating this with. And if that wasn't enough going on at the house, we decided to adopt a puppy. So Ozzy is our Bernedoodle, and he is the other male in the house that keep things lively for sure. So this is the crew that we're going to navigate this COVID closure with, and I'm going to walk you through some of the things that we've found helpful and continue to try new things. So one of the things we always try to do at our house is just do some games or some sort of exploration. And games could be Twister, games could be memory games, games could be trying to make up something on their own, but Uno is a really popular game at our house right now. We've done some Twister. That's a little bit harder for the adults as we get older. So we've tried to shy away from participating in that ourselves. And then really just some exploration with their sisters going out and about. And it gets us outside, which can be refreshing as well. The next really academic thing, and I'll give my wife 100% of the credit here, is a word hunt. And what we do is we just print off words, which would be sight words or CVC words, consonant, vowel, consonant words, that I'm sure maybe throughout your child's education so far, they've done some of those things, and really just hide them around the house. And then they go on a hunt to find all of the words, and they copy them down. And even our 3-year-olds participated in this because they're just kind of following our oldest daughter around and doing some of the word hunt themselves. So that's one thing we try to do academically that we've tried. The next slide really shows some of the activities our kids have really gotten into, and really just art and any sort of drawing. And I will give a plug to an Art Hub for Kids, which is a YouTube channel that shows a dad and his daughter doing simultaneous side-by-side drawings. So you can kind of see what the adult version might look like and what the kid version might look like of the same drawing. And it really just kind of shows our kids, no matter what it looks like, their best efforts and really just engaging in the process of trying to do that. And in the pictures you can see, we did some drawings on our windows there. We've also done some drawings where both girls, our 3-year-old and one of our 3-year-olds and our kindergartner, engaging in the same activity. The next slide there that you can see is really just building with household items. And this is something that we found, just some plastic cups there. The kids would just work on stacking them, lots of different colors. And then, of course, the fun part that our kids like to do is just destroy them as well. But it's a really easy pickup. It's a really easy and a really cheap way to have some new entertainment, some problem solving, and really just some patience to develop those things, and then also the fun of destroying them. So that's been a really fun activity for them to engage in because it's something different, but yet really inexpensive from what they might normally be doing. Then on the next slide there, really it's a variety of things. So anytime we can get outside, run and play and enjoy the sunshine, we're going to do those things. And that could be, maybe you take them on a walk, they ride their bikes, their scooters. Sidewalk chalk has been a huge plus for us because it just gives them an opportunity to explore. One of the things our oldest daughter will do is she'll ride on a big wheel or something and then just draw behind her as well. And it's kind of a path for her to draw on. But play sets, we eat outside as much as we can. And one creative outlet that they have, and you can kind of see that represented in one of those slides, is really they get to pick out their clothes. pretty much any day they want to, because we really don't go anywhere. So that's just a way, it's really one less battle. As a parent, we know that we engage in battles with our kids all the time, and it's one less battle that you have to take on, because there'll be enough as you try to navigate this that don't take on that battle. We have chosen not to, because one way or another, they're going to figure out it's too cold for them to wear those clothes, and then they'll have to come back in and change. So we kind of let them experience that for themselves. And then finally, really just finding a book and reading. It's always fun to read to your family, but finding, we obviously adopted Ozzy there, a pet, a fluffy friend, a sister, even just some of the dolls that they may have and kind of play in house or play in school is another way to engage in some learning. And really reading, if that's the only thing they do, is going to be beneficial at this early age. So I think any of those types of activities would be positive for your family, and really try to keep it meaningful and manageable, and know that whatever you do, doing something is going to move your child in the right direction. Our next presenter is going to be our elementary principal at Valerius Elementary, and it'll be Michelle Cole.
Well, greetings, everybody. The next part is just on what it's like to be home with 2 elementary age students. And so this is my family, the Cole clan. That's my husband there on the left. His name is Ben, and he's a civil engineer for the city of Des Moines. He is home right now, so we are both working from home and learning how to do that. And then my oldest here on the right at the top, that is Sarah. She's in 5th grade. And that is Marin on the bottom right, and she is in 2nd grade, and both go to school here in Urbandale. So what you can see on this first slide is that we learned really quickly within the first week that even though we were home and right away, because it was spring break, it felt like vacation, we needed to have some routine in our day. And so on that very far left, we started before we had the enrichment opportunities just by developing a schedule every day. And that was just starting at 8 and going to 3. And they just got to pick and choose when they wanted to do the different tasks. And so within that, we tried to give them some voice and choice in getting to choose those things, but knowing you still have to get these things done. We learned very, very quickly that 8 to 3 was way too long for our little people. And so they ran out of stamina about halfway through the day around lunchtime. They did great from 8 to noon, and then they were done. They just wanted to get to choose. And so as in the 3 weeks in, when we were offered these enrichment opportunities, we switched over to that middle column there, that picture of a to-do chart. This is a really familiar to-do chart to my kids. It's something we use in the summer all the time and what they would lovingly call their chore charts. And so we just flipped to this sort of schedule where on Sunday nights we sit down and kind of plan what they have to get done. It's really their must-dos. And you know, as Jeremy was talking about, his kiddos get to choose what they get dressed in. So do mine. However, they do have to actually get dressed and brush their teeth and their hair every day. And so just making sure that that gets accomplished is a big deal. And then just some little chores in there, but you can see in the middle, school is not an option for us at our house Monday through Friday. And so they have to get that done. And then at the very, very end of the day, they have to pick up after themselves, because at our house, that has definitely been an issue. Just a lot more stuff out and about than what we're used to at this house. And so finding myself at the end of a work day, I get done and I leave my little office here and I walk out and there's just stuff everywhere. And that wasn't a pleasant experience for any of us, because then mom's upset and then everybody else is upset. So we just started kind of adding that into our daily routine. And then over here on the right is also a part of making our plan. And that is, I had a neighbor up the street who shared she took the forms that we're getting from school and turned it into more of a checklist for her kids. And so I just took that exact document and started doing the same thing. And so the girls kind of go through what they do each day for their reading, writing, math, and then they get to choose a special for that day and they just check it off when they get done. And so we're very comfortable with to-do lists around here. It's something we use often. And so that strategy has been working pretty well for us. The next thing that I want to talk about is that in addition to having a plan, we also felt like it was really important. We learned very quickly that they have a space, just a space to keep their things. You know, as we were reading as adults early on, that just kind of that whole get your brain ready, walk to work every day, do something that makes it feel like you're going to work. The kids need that sort of routine and structure too. And so we created 2 little spaces in our office. We happen to have 2 bookshelves, so we took that bottom bookshelf there. You can see in both those pictures for the girls, and that's just where they house all their things. They can put their Chromebooks there, they can keep a drink there, all the paper that they're using, they can keep it there. And so at least when they walk in here and grab their things, that kind of helps their brain know I'm starting with these opportunities today. But then they get to choose where they go from there. And so down in that corner bottom left there, you can see Marin. She was sitting with me. I was on a Zoom call, so I had my headphones in, and she just likes to sit close. She's a proximity kid, so she wants to be close to mom or dad while she's doing her work. And then she can just kind of tap on my shoulder. And if I do one of these, then she knows we don't get to talk right now. And if I can, I just pull out one earphone and help her get going on whatever it is she needs to do next. And then Sarah over there on the right, she, is a little more independent as a 5th grader. And so she just pops into the living room and cozies up with a blanket and gets to work that way. And they can move around and kind of choose where they want to be, but at least having that one spot that they start at and that they bring all their stuff back to is kind of that routine of going to school and leaving school for the day. On the next slide, I just want to talk too about how, it's great to have a plan and it's great to have spaces, but sometimes it just depends on our mood, and a lot of times it depends on the weather. And so you can see there on the left that some days learning happens in forts. I don't know about your house, but I think we've had at least 10 forts created and put away again during this time. And so Marin created a fort that she chose to learn in that whole week. Sometimes learning happens in the kitchen and learning to bake and do creative things with a parent who may or may not be available to kind of watch and observe and make sure things are going okay. Sometimes things happen outside. Jeremy talked about get outside as much as you can. We also try to get outside as much as possible. And so that morning that it snowed, we just gave ourselves a little grace, and we went out at 8 a.m. and just got to do a little snow hike and take some fun pictures. And then each kid got to do what they wanted with those. And we just think getting outside, it's an awesome opportunity to explore those things we may never get to see when we're going to school and work. So that last slide over there is just talking about the kids sometimes like to be really proactive on a Thursday and double down on their work. So sometimes on Thursday they get done with Thursday and Friday, and then that leaves them with a 3-day weekend, which they think is pretty great. And so just trying to give them some free choice in terms of, if you want to get up in the morning and not start school until 11 o'clock, that's fine. But that means you don't get to go outside as quickly when the weather gets really nice around 1. Or if you want to get up right away and knock it all out really quick, then by 11, the rest of the day is yours. And that's a more typical day around here, but sometimes, depending on their mood, it may not be. And other days, it's work, play, work, play. We just kind of have to play it by ear and give ourselves the grace to know that some things change. And so overall, I just hope that what I shared about having a plan and a space and being flexible, around here, we know that if plan A fails, there's 24 more letters, and that as this whole thing continues over the next 5 weeks and we're still home and learning, that we might have to change it up again and get creative, because that's just what it's going to be, and we're okay with that. So I'm going to move on here, and Lindy Truitt is going to get to share with you about what goes on at her house.
Hi there. I am Lindy Truitt. I'm an instructional coach at Karen Acres, and I have 2 school-age children. I have a 4th grader and a 7th grader. So there's Tate with the saxophone. He is my 7th grade student, and Will there with the kitten, 4th grade. As I said before, I'm an instructional coach. My husband's in landscape sales, and his work schedule during the school closure is a week here at home, and then he takes his turn in at the office. And so this week is a home week for him. So he's around the house to provide some extra supervision on a heavy day for me when I have meetings. So that's really helpful. And then next week he'll be away, so I'll have my little office space back to myself again. So both my boys go to ADM, but they we follow the same kind of work schedule, and they have continuous learning plans that are voluntary and optional as well. And so I'm going to just share what works with us. Here are their workspaces and mine as well. You can see Tate. Sometimes he, I don't know if it's a brother thing or he's just had his fill. He just needs some time in his room with his Chromebook and his earbuds, and he just blocks out his brother and gets his work done. Other times, most times they like to be together. So they're in, there's a picture of them sitting in our guest bedroom / office space. Will gets to use the desktop computer because he doesn't have a Chromebook from school. We chose not to bring one home, but Tate is on the bed with his Chromebook. So when he needs more privacy, he'll go to his room. I'm usually just a few rooms away out in the sunroom. They have easy access through the glass doors there. They'll come press their faces up against there if they need me. Same as Michelle, I'll have the little, not right now, or go ask your dad. But most times we can be pretty flexible with that. So on the next slide, then you're gonna kind of see a little bit of kind of our process. We get our plans on Sundays as well. And we take a look at those. And really what we've decided works for us is instead of doing a little chunk of time for each content area each day, we just block off a day for reading, a day for writing, a day for math, a day for science. And what gets sprinkled throughout the week is our specials. So on Sunday or Monday morning, our school day doesn't start until 9. So, and we're all up. So sometimes it's Monday morning, we open up that email and we look at the plans and look through those and decide, you know, what makes sense for our week. If we know we have other things going on, if we know there's a scheduled Google Meet with the teacher, we'll write that down right away, and we'll prioritize workload based on things that we know are happening that week. We'll decide on that together. We'll fill out their planner, which is just a kind of a week at a glance to-do list notepad that I've had. And then from there, it's independent. They just check it off when they're done. So on the next slide, I've kind of shown a picture of what we would look through with Will. So this is a copy of an Urbandale 4th grade plan that we kind of mocked up. And so he will look through that and we'll talk through what does the flow for reading look like for the week, what does the flow for math, writing, or science or social studies that week. Will is my student who doesn't enjoy reading a lot. It's not his favorite subject. And so he oftentimes chooses to get reading out of the way on Monday, and he'll tackle that first, which is good for me because that happens to be a day where my first scheduled meeting on a consistent basis doesn't start until noon that day. So I can really be there to support him through a content area that he kind of doesn't enjoy as well. And then, so if we go to the next slide there, Michelle, you'll see his kind of a mapped out to-do list there. So on Monday, following those suggested timeframes and guidelines for time spent, reading this week was a little bit heavier. So he thought, well, I'm gonna do reading days 1, 2, and 3. So it might be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then he's like, that's all I'm gonna do for reading on Monday. And then I'll do a little bit of writing. And his special he chose was PE. And then I have that house responsibility. I don't have chores for like allowance. They live here, so they have responsibilities too. And so they do their house responsibilities every day, and plus one more, because they are home and they are making a bigger mess, like Michelle mentioned before, and more dishes are being created and more forts are being made for sure. So they have to do one more thing that's helpful beyond what they're responsible for each day. So then Tuesday, he'll do a little bit of math, finish up writing. Any day that they don't do literacy as a content area, they have 20 minutes of free reading that day. So that's why you see read 20 minutes on Tuesday. Will's classroom has Reflex Math, and so his teacher has asked him to do Reflex 3 times a week, so he chooses what 3 days he wants to do those on. So you'll see that scheduled in there. Thursday's his class meeting, that's right at the top. He doesn't want to forget to log on and do that. One thing that we can be flexible in for Will, and you'll see Tate's as well, is, you know, as he starts reading and he says initially, oh, I only want to do the first 3 days, and I'll come back to it. He might get in the groove of it and say, nope, I can totally finish that off. And he'll just complete reading for the week all on Monday, and then he doesn't have to come back to that later. Or you'll see in 4th grade this week at Karen Acres, they're making a diorama for a reading project. So if that were a plan that I were to receive as a parent, I was like, oh, maybe on Wednesday, then after our reading plans are done, we'll start that diorama project. And that's what we're also going to do for art. So we might choose to forego the art plan for the week and really build that into that diorama piece for reading. So that's kind of Will's plan for the week. Flexible. He has choice in what days he wants to do it, but it's something that we build together, so I can ensure time that he needs more support, I can be more available. And then we just rinse and repeat, and we do for Tate, my 7th grader. So here's a copy of some 7th grade plans that our 7th grade teachers at Urbandale Middle School are sending out. So we, again, look through it all together. We first go through and talk about, are there any times teachers are offering Q&A sessions that we want to make sure to schedule in? Are there any times that teachers are planning like Google check-ins or Google Meets to just check in that he wants to be a part of? And that lately has helped structure up his schedule a little bit more. So on the next slide, you'll see his to-do list or his week at a glance. And you'll see he has decided to do one of his literacy work, you'll see on Wednesday, because on Thursday he's having a literacy Q&A if you wanted to pop in. So he's like, oh, I'll do the work on Wednesday. That way, if Thursday, if I have any questions, I'll know what I want to ask. He's a planner. he's a very logical thinker, and so he kind of thinks everything through a real high degree. So that helps him structure up his week. He is although he's very planful, he also likes to ease into his week. So you'll see he likes to do band and choir on Monday, and we don't hit hard into the math, science, literacy, global studies until later on in the week. He likes to ease into his Monday. So he'll start with those fun things for him. And then if you go ahead and go to the next slide, Michelle, the reason again that this works for us is because choice fits each boy's style. Like I mentioned before, Tate likes to ease into his week. Will likes to get the hard hitting stuff done right away. It's built with adult support in mind. Will needs a little extra support in reading. I have more time on Monday mornings than I do any other morning in the week, so it works for me too. It also provides that flexibility with each week and each day. Again, if there's a classroom Q&A or a classroom meeting or a Zoom, we can restructure our week any way that works best for that week. And then also for those specials or core subject areas that have special meetings or events in mind as well. So that just really works for us. It's structured yet flexible. We can rearrange, we can adjust. And then it helps them know what to get accomplished that day, and it helps me know what to check in on at the end of the day as well for any questions or support. So that's why it works for us. Next up is Denise Wood. She's our Director of Quality and Continual Improvement, and she's gonna talk through some high school things with you.
Hi, everybody. So yes, my name's Denise Wood. I'm the Director of Quality and Continual Improvement here in Urbandale. I'm also the mom to 2 high school daughters. So I have a graduating senior and a sophomore. So I'm going to share a little bit about how we've been handling voluntary learning plans in my house. Both of our kids are typically responsible for their own learning, like on a regular basis. So we've definitely tried to maintain that during the closure. So like on a regular basis, I don't monitor assignments and grades for them. I don't log in to check and make sure they're doing this or that because we expect at the high school level that they'll be responsible for their learning and advocate for themselves and their needs, only involving my husband or I if they need to. So in the vein of trying to maintain that independence and responsibility, we've worked with our girls to set some parameters and prioritize their learning during the closure. So one of the first things that really helps is that, stay on that first slide, Michelle. Sorry. Yep. So one of the things that really helps is they each have a DMAT class. And so that one's really easy for us as parents to help them maintain because DMAT courses are essentially required learning. They either had to drop the course or finish it out. So that has made it pretty easy in those courses for the girls. But then the setting parameters. So this kind of took a family meeting and a little family understanding. And so we set a 2-hour engage your brain and 30 minutes of physical activity for each weekday. So both of the girls are required to do something academic every day for about 2 hours. So they can be working on items from their learning plans from their teachers or their DMAT classes. But it can also be academic things like reading a book or writing in a journal or researching something that they're interested in learning more about. Obviously, at this age, they're watching a lot of news, seeing a lot of information about COVID-19. And so they've both spent some of their academic time reading and understanding better what's happening in the world. They also, so then we had a conversation after we set the parameters about, so if you're going to choose to ignore something on your learning plan, let's talk about what would be appropriate or not appropriate to ignore from those learning plans from your teachers, based on some priorities for themselves. So we talked about like their future plans, courses that are coming up. So an example would be, my senior plans to pursue a Spanish minor in college. So she's decided that it's probably important for her to finish everything that's coming from her Spanish 4 teacher, so that she'll be better prepared for whatever that first Spanish class is going to look like for her at college. So the next slide shows a tool that we use here in Urbandale called Plan, Do, Study, Act, or PDSA. And this is something that my older daughter has regularly used to help her set and achieve goals for many years. So I'm just going to talk you through how it is that she has used this plan specifically. This is one week this spring. I think the date might be on it, or maybe not, but it was sometime in April that this was her PDSA for the week. And so you can see there in the plan, she wants to learn the preterite, I think I said it right, and imperfect tenses. And so her do, or the way that she was going to accomplish that week, was to study the tenses for 15 minutes every day. At the end of the week, then, she did her study of that. She considered, how did I do? I assume she'd gotten some feedback also from her teacher from what she had submitted, and decided that she understood each of how to use those tenses by themselves, but wasn't sure she was doing it correctly in context. And so you can see her act for the next week was that she knew she needed to practice the preterite and imperfect tenses in context. So that would be an example, like for her, she can see some importance in really finishing Spanish 4, because that has to do with her future career goals. My sophomore, for example, has been working hard to finish Algebra 2, because I believe it's pre-calc or something along those lines that she'll take next fall. And she knows that math is likely going to build on this math. And so she's prioritized making sure that she really is diving into that Algebra 2 learning plan every week. So I hope that those of you with high school kids can see how kind of a looser approach is appropriate. However, you also have to know your own children, and the way that you were working in school with your child ahead of the closure. So we've tried to maintain hands off, advocate for yourself, take care of yourself, while still giving them some pretty strong guidelines about what we expect to happen. But if you were the parent of a high school child who maybe you weren't approaching it that way and you had to stay on them to do things, it might make sense to look back a little bit at what Lindy shared about how she's working with her 7th grader, or if you have a freshman or sophomore high schooler that you know needs just a little more structure. So I appreciate the opportunity to share, and I'm sorry for no pictures. They were not excited about that idea.
Hey, Laura, I'm going to back you up and unmute you. You're unmuted now.
We can splice that in video. It'll be fine.
Hopefully you found the ideas shared to be helpful. If you'd like to offer ideas on how we can continue to support you as parents, we would love to know. All you need to do is open your cell phone camera and hold it directly over the QR code screen to access a short survey. And we just want to tell you that you are doing an amazing job as parents. And just remember that you're not alone and that you got this.